Hey guys, Drew here. Just wanted to give you a little quick tour of my Martha build to give you guys some ideas if you're thinking about building a Martha. Give you some ideas, give you some maybe a parts list, and some things that I did that worked out really well, and some things that maybe didn't work out so well, so you can learn from a couple of my mistakes or things I might do differently. Um, in total, I love this thing. This thing is awesome. It's a very cool automated little thing. It's the first real automated thing I've ever built. So pretty proud of it in general. You can see I got a couple of bags of lion's mane going in there now. Um, the basics of it are pretty straightforward. I've got the greenhouse here, the 4 shelf mini greenhouse. On the bottom, I've got a tray. That's a tray from a dog, I guess the cage, like an indoor dog kennel. If you kennel your dog for the day, that's the tray liner for it. But it winds up fitting in here just perfectly, and I'll put the link there. That's to catch any excess water. I thought about filling with that with perlite. Doesn't seem necessary, and potentially harder to clean, so I'm leaving it blank for now. But that's a possibility if I feel like I need more humidity or to retain humidity or have somewhere for the humidity to land, something like that. Possible future tweak there. Only other equipment that's involved here is the little sensor for, I'll show you my humidity controller in a minute, but you can see the sensor in there. And then obviously the ductwork. The way I did the ductwork here up at the top, I traced around it to just cut the hole, and then I realized that there would be no way I would have just a hole in the plastic with this shoved through it, and I didn't really like that style, even though that's basically what it looks like here. So what I did instead was I traced the circle, but then instead of cutting it out, I cut like an asterisk so that I would have little flaps to tape on. So you can see it's taped inside, and that's so I could just run around it and hit those flaps and then keep it as a nice secure, this thing's not going anywhere. So I thought that was a good way of attaching it. Attaching the other end, similar, I was a little bit confused as to how to attach it actually. I didn't want to just drop it in here. I wanted a pretty good seal here. And what I noticed was that this wire, these are not concentric circles or all circles. It's one wire band that goes around like a corkscrew. So what I did was I cut a hole that's a little bit smaller than the full diameter here. So traced it, put it down, traced around it, and then cut a slightly smaller hole than what I had traced. And then I threaded it through as though it was a screw. I kind of sat it down and screwed it on to the plastic lid, which worked out really, really well. You can see that there's just sort of one screw thread's worth. See if I can get this to focus. Sort of one through, shoved through there, and it works really well. It's a really tight seal. I haven't had any problems with fog coming out anywhere else around that, so really impressed with that seal actually. Inside, and I'll show you the top in a second, but inside here, that's my 1-disc House of Hydro fogger. And then in the back there is my little supply line coming in for water that refills automatically as the water level in here gets low. Eric Myers has a great video on how to build this box, and I basically just followed his ideas other than a couple little tweaks. So I'll link that video just so you can see how he does it and all the parts. He goes through all the parts lists and everything and builds the thing right in front of you, so it's really convenient. Here, I got the House of Hydro fan here. It's the 80 millimeter waterproof. It's got a controller here. The waterproof, just because it's near water, you probably actually don't need a waterproof fan for this particular application, unless your fogger winds up right below it, sort of squirting water up onto it. My fogger usually rests over in this area. I try to shove it over into this corner. So I don't think I needed it in this scenario. You could always keep your water level lower too. So that was potential money saver is not to get the waterproof one, but in terms of longevity, this is obviously going to do a pretty good job. I have found with this particular setup, 2 things. One, the fan speed needs to be really low for this setup to work. I thought I could crank this fan and just shoot everything up, which is true. I can do that. But what happens is that the fog comes out of the top here so fast that it's a fan breeze pushing down, and I wind up, because I don't have any kind of free air exchange, I don't have any fans for exhaust here. I haven't figured out the component or whether I need that component yet, so I'm holding off on that. but it actually just forces the fog out of underneath the flaps. So it forces the fog out. So if I run that fan really high, the fog or the humidity, the relative humidity actually winds up dropping. So I run it low and it just trickles in and it's perfect. The other thing about this system is that the one disc fogger that I have in there is probably not enough of a fogger. It works, but the maximum relative humidity I've been able to get this up to so far is 92%, which is a bit low for my overall desires, although it'll work for I think most of the things that I'm trying to do. It'd be nice to be able to get that up higher for certain kinds of things in the future. It's also because it's only a one disc fogger, even though it works and it fills and I can get it up to that 92%, and it doesn't run all the time for that, it will run longer and more frequently because it's a one disc fogger instead of a three disc fogger. So I hadn't really taken that into account, and I was trying to go cheap on the build. So I went with the one disc, but I regret that already. So in the future, for other people's sake, might be worth getting the three disc right away if you're on the fence about that question. Go ahead and get the bigger one. The other thing I did was I got a really cheap Rubbermaid bin. I got it not clear on purpose. I don't want it to be clear because clear is going to invite light. That's going to invite all kinds of infections and stuff. But I got a really cheap one, and what happens actually is that this seal that it makes at the top, and you can see it actually, you can see the fog coming out here. It's just a crappy seal. I wish I had gotten a better bucket. Or a better tote. I don't feel like remaking this whole thing. So I think I'm probably going to run like maybe a bead of silicone or something inside this lid to try to make that seal a little better. I've tried just weighting this down, and it doesn't actually improve the seal that much. So get yourself a good tote with a good locking lid on it. That's going to create that kind of good pressure trap so that the inbound pressure here can do its full job pushing the fog up instead of letting it leak out. That's a lesson learned for me. So the other thing I might do differently in this setup, right now I don't have anything for temperature. My guess, and it's been working out so far, my guess was that this is our heater for our kitchen right here. It runs fairly often. It's a gas heater. It's right next to this tent, and we keep this kitchen pretty warm. So hopefully the temperature works out. But if it doesn't, and I need to get an aquarium heater or something to heat up this water in here, I think that'd totally work. But then I'm gonna have to buy another controller. I'm gonna have to buy a temperature controller. And so it might have been better to get the Wilhe. They have one that does both. That does both humidity and temperature. That might have been a good idea to get right away, just as a little upgrade. That would have made my life easier now. So, but that's it. Let me know if you have any questions about the build, about any place that I have anything. I know one of the things that I was looking for before I built this was really detailed videos on how did you assemble this? How did you put it together? What were all the different components? How do they play off each other? Those kinds of questions. So if you have anything like that, please let me know. I'm happy to show additional details of any part of this build. Give suggestions, give advice, kind of walk you through the steps of anything if you're looking to do the same thing that I just did. So let me know. Have a good one. Happy growing.